Hi, my name's Amanda Easton. I'm a performer, singer-songwriter from Sydney, Australia. I make retro-inspired theatrical electronic pop. But when I'm not doing my own music, I do
cabaret,
cover band gigs, solo gigs, tribute shows, recording sessions. Welcome to my Circle of Light vlog.
But I'll be watching you from here.
Hi there, how are you? This is my vlog number 21 and I'm sending extra love to you this time. Things are a little bit crazy in everybody's world at the moment. I've just come back from doing an interview with my friend and long-time colleague Lloyd G, who's a drummer, and I'd organised doing this interview with him, and certainly we didn't expect to be in quite the position we are now as far as just the world and work and everything else. And I didn't want the interview to be about the coronavirus, but we also felt like we had to get rid of the elephant in the room straight off, because let's face it, our whole lives have been turned upside down and we're all talking about it. I've even found that, I'm the type of person that keeps away from the news, because especially since having a child, I found I'm ultra sensitive and it doesn't help anybody for me to carry the world's burdens even heavier than I would anyway by opening myself up to all the bad stuff that happens in the world. But lately I've been waking up and turning on the news radio so that I can find out what's going on. So it's very nice to see you here. Hi Joe, I hope you're doing well. And so I am going to talk about that elephant in the room, because it's big and it's smelly and it's got piles of dung everywhere. You gotta laugh, don't you? So, being my video diary, I guess I'll talk about how it's affecting me, because it's certainly, I'm in a very similar position to a lot of other professional singers and musicians. And basically, my income's been decimated. I've had most gigs for the next 6 months cancel out. Only one of them has actually postponed for another date. All the rest have just been taken out of the diary completely. And I make my full-time living from being a singer, so that's gone for the next 6 months. Having said that, I have a gig tomorrow night and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that now. It's almost as if you're going to take everything from me, let's do this properly. For those who aren't in Australia, as of this time, we're allowed to have indoor 100 people, up to 100 people, and outdoor 500. I'm sure that's going to get narrowed down day by day until it's in complete lockout. I tend to be of the mind, and I'm no expert here, this is just my opinion, that we should be locking down sooner than later. And so what do? I'd never pull out of a gig unless I'm on my deathbed or I really can't avoid it for some massive reason. So I don't want to not do the gig because I'm scared, or I think it's the right thing to do when I don't actually know. And that's the problem. I'm confused, probably like many of us out there. So I don't want to let down the small business that's hiring me, the agent and the restaurant, because it's a restaurant gig. All of those staff that are going out there to keep the business alive, and then I pull out, that's not fair. But I do think we all should be in lockdown at this time. So John's saying pull out. I know, I don't know. Sometimes I am, pull out. And sometimes I'm not. I kind of keep looking at my email, because every time I look at my email, I lose another gig or two. So I'm expecting it to pull out, and I even called the agent to check. It's really difficult, and it's not about my income. It's one gig. It's not going to make or break me. So it's a hard one, and I'm sure I'm not the only one facing this at the moment. I wonder how much selfishness is involved when it comes to the venues. But I mean, it's their life and their livelihood, and they've got families too. But it's really interesting. It's really brought home to me something my dad always told me, and I lost my dad about 15 years ago, but he was a lawyer, and my mum owned a hairdressing salon. So we were kind of, middle class. We weren't upper middle, and we probably weren't lower middle class. So we're middle class. And I went to a posh private school, but I did manage to get a scholarship, so we didn't have to pay any fees. And basically everyone I went to school with, their parents were doctors or financiers, or, in most cases they were probably upper middle class. And everybody voted Liberal. And for the non-Australians, that's big L Liberal, which is actually Conservative. I know, it's confusing. And my family voted Labor. which was, of course, left-wing. And people would say to me, you know, kids as we got older, why does your family vote Labor? Your dad's a lawyer and your mum owns a small business. You should be voting for the Liberal Party. And I spoke to Dad about that and I said, wouldn't it be in our interest to vote for the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party? And he said, probably, but I never want to be the kind of person that votes completely selfishly. We're part of a society, we're part of a country and a world, and we should vote for what's right for most people. And if we vote for what's right for most people, it will be a benefit to us in the end as well. And I'm sure I didn't really understand it at the time, but I really do now. And so I want to do the right thing for everybody. It's a really hard one to know. It's a really, really hard one. Should I have made the decision before now and pulled out of that gig? Anyway, watch this space. I'll let you know if it does get cancelled, or I'll let you know if it does go ahead and is anyone going to be there. Obviously, I'm going to be super, super careful about social distancing and about washing my hands religiously and all that kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to know if any other musos are in a similar space. I know that most of us have lost most of our gigs, so that is common among all of us. Look at my red cheeks. But is anyone still got gigs and they're not sure whether they should continue to do them or not, but their venue's insisting that you do them? It's definitely, you know, it's a difficult time. And I did think when I was going to do my vlog, I'm not going to talk about the coronavirus because there's already so much doom and gloom and everyone's talking about it, and I want to be positive, but how can you not, right? But I do really want to think positively, and that's without downgrading the risks and, you know, some of the suffering that a lot of people are experiencing, because I certainly don't want to do that. But, you know, we're stuck with it, so let's look at the bright side. And I'm thinking, okay, I have basically no work, so I get to spend more time with my family. My son's at home from school, and that's a wonderful thing. I'm practically, it feels like kind of homeschooling, which is something I never thought I would do. And I have time to write songs. I kind of agree, John. He's saying what's right for most people is complete lockdown now. I kind of agree, but if most people aren't doing it, and they're not, because I've just come in from the outside world and the people are everywhere, they're in the restaurants, and it takes a strong government to go, this is going to hurt. It's a little bit like pulling out a bindi from your foot. You're not going to leave it there and have it possibly fester. You're going to pull it out. It's going to hurt at the time, but it's better in the long run. I completely agree. Anyway, I'll let you know what I do. Yep, I was going to the positive, that's right. So the positive of that is there is more time. So I get to finish the album that I'm working on. I get to write some extra songs. I get to do more lives. I'm thinking about doing maybe some kind of live streaming concerts, since I won't really be doing any gigs. And how that works, I don't know. I'm used to working with bands, and when I do my original stuff, that's the way I'd prefer to do it, and that's not going to happen. So I will have to adapt and pivot like the rest of us. So watch this space, and I'm so interested to hear how you're handling any self-isolation or lockdown or whatever that you're experiencing. But I'm loving some things that I'm seeing. I'm loving the balcony concerts in Italy. We don't have any balcony in this house, but I'm sure we can adapt somehow. It's just the music from the heart is absolutely beautiful, and I know it's happening in Spain as well. And I was thinking, is this the first time, certainly in our lifetime it is, that the entire world is facing a common enemy? I'm trying to think of something else that even comes close. And generally we're fighting with other, well, not us, but different countries or different religions, different people are fighting with different religions and different people. But this time we're all in the same boat. I mean, this disease doesn't only pick the poor people. There's been celebrities that have been diagnosed. It doesn't pick people from only a certain country or race. And I hope, and I know that I'm an eternal optimist, but I hope that the fact that we are all facing something together means that we can unify to a certain extent. I know the whole world's not suddenly going to be best friends, but I think in some ways it will make us feel like part of a bigger community than the one that's just outside our door. And I hope we can see some positive benefits about that. Spanish flu 1918, that probably would have been the latest time. So obviously we well before any of us were born. So yeah, this is probably the first time in our lifetime. And how lucky are we that we have the internet, that we can still talk to each other, that we can still entertain ourselves and each other. There is so much that we can do having the internet, and just the communication between people, and the isolation and the depression in times like the Spanish flu would have been a nightmare, as well as obviously the technology we have in the way of hopefully the medication aspect of this flu, and of making sure that it clears early, all the information that we have. We're in a lucky time in that respect. And what else will I be doing? This morning I just went to interview my friend and colleague Lloyd G, as I said earlier, a drummer, and we had a wonderful talk. We didn't hug, and we sat like a fair distance apart, and we did everything smart, but that probably won't last long, this in-person interview thing. But of course we have Facebook Live, and we have Zoom, and we have all these other tools. So I hope to be continuing my interviews. I'll have more time for editing, and I'm looking forward to being just really creative, and probably tidying my office and doing all those things that I always put off because I've got to run off for a gig and I've got to go and learn another song, and which I'm not complaining about. I'm going to miss those times. And you know what? We are going to fall in love even more with the things that we love now that we are going to lose temporarily. So when it comes to live music, and it comes to hugs and kisses, when we're able to do it again, and we're back on track again, we're going to love doing those things even more. I'm really hopeful that the music industry will have a boom, that people will be so desperate to go out and see live music and create it and be part of it in some respect. Same with going to restaurants and buying and seeing art in person, and all the things that are starting to be restricted now. We're going to love them even more, and I'm kind of excited about that. And I think it's really important that we look ahead to those times and how we can prepare for when that big boom's going to hit, and we're going to have just so much work coming at us. We're not going to know what to do. So I'm going to sing every day and do my warm-ups. I'm going to improve my piano playing. There's a whole lot of stuff that I'm excited about doing. And I think all we can do now is take one step at a time, because I don't know about you, but the way I thought on Monday was not the way I thought Tuesday. You get information from all these sources, and we do our best to make a decision, but I just don't know. And things are closing every day. People are changing their mind. And all we can do is take one step at a time. And you know what? We'll get through it. We've got through big things before, and we'll do it again. And as long as we try our best to be kind to people, I think that we'll get through this and be stronger and happier, and all sorts of wonderful things will happen as a result, even while we're dealing with the suffering that we have to do now. Anyway, it's lovely to see you. Please, if anybody wants to chat, you might have noticed I don't mind a bit of a chat. So talk to me if you're just feeling like venting or whatever you like, because I'm always up for a chat, whether it's on the phone or on Facebook Messenger or however you like. But
Truth will show when you stand so close, eye to eye.
Hi Craig, thank you so much for joining me. Or I should say thank you for inviting me to join you, because we're actually in your studio at the moment.
Okay.
Now, a question that I always ask everybody, and I'm not actually entirely sure I know the answer to it this time.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we first met?
It's like I've known you forever.
I know, right? And the funny thing is, we've worked together on different projects, but I don't think we've ever performed together on the same stage.
No, we haven't. We haven't. We came close.
Yes, we have. We have to remedy that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's like now, I mean, this is the first time that we've ever really gotten a chance to hang out. And it's been fascinating actually learning about this Amanda Easton that I've always seen for so long.
And vice versa. And I mean, you very kindly performed in my music video.
Go, baby, go where the honey. She's a punch, drunk, dreamy, and night time steamy. She's go, baby, go. She's a go.
I still love that footage of you. It's great. Just so funky.
It's a very cool video.
Oh, thank you.
The
I love it.
concept, everything. You know,
I actually watched it recently because it popped up somewhere in my social media.
Yeah.
I like that video, if I say so myself. But I mean, one of the reasons I love it is because it features so many amazing artists. So, Craig, you're very well known as a bass player.
Yes.
But actually playing the bass is only a small part. I don't know what percentage, but it's not the only thing you do by any extent.
No, it's not.
So please tell me about the other things before we get to the bass.
I'm a tech head.
Oh, just
tech
like
head.
me.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. You're a lot more of a professional tech head than I am.
But recording, producing, all of that, I do all of those things as well. I also act as a technical director. So I've done things for concerts, lighting, sound crews,
Oh my
all
goodness.
of that. I teach digital
Bass
recording.
or recording?
Yeah, digital recording, composition for screen at TAFE I've been doing, teaching
Yeah.
how to do TV ads and things like that. I also do sound design
Yeah.
for games, animation.
You're going to be my son's hero.
I actually do a number of kids.
Wow.
I spend time with showing them how to do that. 'Cause
Yeah.
I love it. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And bass would be the thing I do the least.
That's amazing. Because I'm sure if I asked most people around the music scene, he's the expert bass player, which of course you are, but you would imagine that would take up most of your life. How much do you sleep?
I average about 4 hours.
This is why you can do all of those
Yeah,
things. That's incredible.
Yeah, I have a thirst for knowledge, so.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that we have access to the world's, knowledge at our fingertips.
It's amazing.
That to me is what it's all about, really.
Yeah. So tell me about your multicultural upbringing.
African American, but American Indian on both sides of my family.
Right.
So, my mother's from Oklahoma, my father's from Georgia. Father was military,
Yeah.
and he's 10 years older than my mother.
Right.
And he had just come back from France. And my mother was a singer. Her side of the family is musical.
Okay. It had to come in
So
somewhere.
that's where all that's from. So I have really early memories as a kid of being on the front porch of my grandfather's place and him playing slide blues and stuff like that.
Oh, wonderful.
And funny enough, I didn't really discover the blues until here in Australia.
It's not really the place that you'd expect to discover the blues.
I was around it, but I didn't really connect with it, But my mother sang, and when she turned 18, she was allowed to go with her brother to Kansas and perform there. And that's where my father met her.
Oh, nice.
He walked in and said to his mate, "I'm going to marry that woman."
No.
Yeah, it was one of those stories.
Yeah. How fantastic.
So, being military, we moved a lot.
Yeah.
I'm the eldest of 7.
My goodness, your mum's a legend. So is your dad.
Yeah. And lived a lot of places.
Right.
But at the age of 9 was when I really discovered what I wanted to do. And I had this dream
That's young.
I was on stage at a big outdoor festival. That was the dream I had, and what it felt like, just rocking that crowd. When I woke up, that's what I wanted to do.
How amazing.
Yes.
And that feeling that you got in your dream, did that translate to the real experiences of
I
being
started
on stage?
teaching myself to play, and I've always had strong connections with dreams, and I reckon that's the Indian part. Because I used to be able to, right before I'd go to sleep, I'd see like a slide carousel with slides in it, and it would spin around, and I could see what the slides were, and whatever it stopped on, that's what I would dream about.
How amazing.
And I've always had this really incredible connection with dreams, and after that very first one of being on stage, I would have subsequent dreams of being on different stages, and they've all come to pass.
Any not come true yet? Because it'd be interesting to know what's to come.
There's 2 that have the very first one,
Yeah.
and then there's one other. But there would be times throughout my career where, and whenever I have these dreams, when I wake from them, I knew it's one of those dreams because of how it felt and how vivid it was. And not only with playing, but they would be things that be questioning, like, where is that? Where? And then I'd find myself, in some country or somewhere, and all of a sudden, this is it. And then I would know even the sequence that's going to happen for the next few minutes afterwards. So it's been,
fantastic.
for me, it's been indicators and markers that, I'm on my path.
Yeah.
And so, being fortunate enough to have a desire and a vocation like that, a dream that you're after, what it allowed me to do was actually focus on doing just that.
Yeah.
And my parents, all they said is, we just want you to do well in school.
Mm.
And outside of that, we'll support you in any way. So, I ended up just spending all my waking hours playing, or teaching myself to play, And I didn't even know how to tune the guitar. And I used to pick up my favorite album covers, and whatever direction the tuning pegs were in, I would turn it like that and think, okay, now I'm playing like him.
That's
and
fantastic.
Now I'm going to play like B.B. King, And obviously it didn't sound like that. But, years later, sometime later, someone showed me how to tune it, and then all of a sudden, it got better.
So you started on guitar. That was
I
the
started on
first
guitar.
instrument you picked up.
And what really hooked me there was Jimi Hendrix. I was in the front of the house just playing basketball. My mother was eating the pavement. She said, "Oh, Jimi Hendrix died today." And I said, "Oh, who's that?" And then I heard Band of Gypsies like that week. And that was it for me. I wanted to play guitar that bad.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Germany. And that's when I used to do the album cover thing with tuning the guitar.
Yeah.
But I just would spend every waking moment, so I'd be up till like 4 a.m. or something like that.
This is where you got your skill to only have 4 hours sleep a night.
I
It started
guess
early.
So. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, I'm just curious. I like, I love life.
Yeah, I can see your curiosity. I can imagine that's a driving force. So how did you get from guitar to bass? Was that a direct thing, or did it go through other instruments?
Well, by the time we moved to Germany, my parents went out one night, and my mother got up and sang with the local band. And they found out where she lived and came and asked her to sing with the band.
Yeah.
So on the weekends, she'd be performing. She had 7 kids.
Yeah, she was kind of busy.
But I got to go.
Yeah.
I was always big for my age, and I got to sit backstage and watch all this. And still into guitar, and then we moved back to California. So this was all happening in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Moved back to California, and I saw somebody slap. I was in the Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
And I saw that and just thought, wow, that's what I want to do.
It's kind of a guitar, but there's something else there.
Well, well, just that technique.
Yeah.
And what was amazing is I'd heard it, but because we didn't have YouTube or anything like that, unless you saw it, you had no idea that that's what was happening.
So was it part of the actual performance and the slapping that really got you?
Well,
not just the
it was
sound.
the visual. It was the visual. And it was the sound. The fact that it was rhythmic, percussive, but melodic as well. And, thinking back, I really realized that how much the bass really was what I connected with. From early Motown, it was always the bass more than it was anything else.
So Motown was one of the things you were listening to?
Grow up on.
Yeah.
Grow up on. And then another really vivid memory about bass was going to a fair in the country and parking some distance away and walking towards the activity, and there was a band playing, but all you could hear was the bass.
Yes, as you often can.
From miles away.
Feel it too, right? Yeah.
And that was one of the things, like, wow, what a powerful thing. So,
oh, you're in California now
after Germany.
After Germany, and that was Berlin, wasn't it?
No, it was Bremen.
Oh, okay.
Bremen. I went to an English boarding school the first 2 years I was there.
Yeah.
So it was quite strange. School started, we'd have to leave at 6 a.m.
Right.
And where I went to school was like 50 minutes away, but we had to take the younger siblings to another school in a different direction. So I'd leave at 6 a.m. and get home by 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Have dinner, do homework, and then I'd be practicing.
And that's when you go into the night,
Yeah.
perfecting the craft that you ended up doing.
Yeah.
So you're in California, and I heard that you got offered
a recording deal while you were there.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Had a really successful band in Orange County. I was the youngest member of the band, and
Playing bass, I'm assuming,
playing
on the
bass.
stage.
Yeah, I'm
That's it.
totally into
That's
bass
it.
on that
Yeah.
stage. And we were playing in this restaurant, and at the end of the night, we got to like the last song, and a couple of guys walked in, and one of them came up and said, "We'd like to give you $100 to play another song."
Oh, yes, please.
And
And you were how old?
I was 18.
Gosh, $100 for one song for anybody
Yeah,
is
the
good.
whole band was making like 300.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we played another song, and he came up and said, "We give you another $100 to play another song." So we played one more, and then we had to stop because it was time to close. And we went over and had a chat to them, and they said, "We've just started a production company up in San Francisco, and we came down here looking for talent, and everything we saw we were unimpressed with, so we were back on our way to the hotel and past here, and we think you guys are great, and we'd like to offer you a contract." So we met with them, and it was like a 5-page contract for a production, and we had done a party for Linda Ronstadt's lawyer, and we contacted him, and he ended up rewriting the contract, so it went from 5 to 25 pages.
It sounds more like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and luckily for us, he said because it was their first venture, he wrote it in such a way that if anything went wrong with it, we didn't come out owing any money. And we were given a $9,000 advance.
Which would have been an absolute fortune.
We were flown to San Francisco to the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
In a 5-bedroom house, 16-track studio. We paid $300 each a week to be in the studio from 11 till 5 p.m. And yeah, I was 18, going on 19, and being the youngest member of the band, I was so focused on music. So we'd done that for about 7 months. We had producers brought in from ex-Motown and Count Basie's orchestra for horn and string arrangements. And then we went into Wally Hyder's studios. Santana was in Studio B, Journey was in one of the studios, and we were in the other. And we were recording, just anything that came to mind. That's
What a
what
dream.
It really
So
was.
many people would have that as their dream.
It really was, one of those moments. And after about 3 months of doing this, they had already invested in buying land, so I started building a studio for us. And then we got a chance to meet the investor
Yeah.
and found out that the guy that discovered us had been embezzling money. So the whole project stopped within a week.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm now 20 years old. And because I wasn't 21, you can't go out legally in California until they're 21. But the other guys were older, so I spent all my time in the studio.
Okay.
And so that's where I got my skills.
Yeah.
And learning and being in, a world-class studio like that.
And not having to pay for it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's where that came from. So within a week, it finished. We had to go back to Southern California.
Was that heartbreaking? Silly question.
Well,
It had to be.
for me, it was just like, next.
Really?
Because I had...
You didn't know what was normal. Probably you thought,
Well,
oh
it's
yeah, I
like,
think it's great
okay,
deal.
well,
That
this-
happens all the time.
Well, this is what happens, I've got this focus,
Yeah.
and life is happening. So for me, it's like, okay, well, what's next? And that was the
Great.
attitude I had towards it, where two of the guys they were crushed. They gave up music, and so we got back to Orange County, and after a while, I said, listen, guys, let's keep this going. If I book some gigs, can we keep it going? And they agreed to do that, and I went out and got a couple of gigs, and one of them, there was a club that had a sign out the front, paid auditions for bands.
Paid auditions.
Paid auditions, and the deal was, you come and you audition, and if they liked you, they paid you for that, and you got a 2-week engagement, which was pretty cool.
I was thinking you were going to tell me you had to pay to audition.
No, it was
That's a
completely
good way
opposite.
around, yeah.
So I go there this afternoon, and I call the manager, and he takes me outside because there was a band auditioning, and so I knew it was quite nosy. And I give him the spill on this band. We've done this recording, and I give him the brochures and everything, and he looks at me and goes, I don't want black people in my club.
What?
Yeah, just straight up. And I just, politely said thank you. and I took my things and I went home and told my parents, and I said, listen, if this is what I have to deal with, I gotta go. So.
You hadn't really experienced that kind of racism before?
Well, growing up black in America,
Yeah.
you are aware of it.
Yeah.
But for it to just be,
So overt.
So overt. It was like, well, my attitude is always, if that's what I got to deal with, then I choose not to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I told my parents I'm leaving. I'm going to go back to Germany.
Yeah. Where you didn't experience anything like that?
Well, here's the amazing thing about it. Being Black American outside of the U.S., I had the biggest epiphany that 2 years later, I fly from Holland as a musical director for our Dutch artists. We had a showcase in L.A. And the moment that I landed at customs, and this is my first time back after leaving the U.S., the moment I landed at customs, I was black.
Yeah.
First.
Ah.
And it was really strange, because outside I'd just been Craig.
Isn't that interesting?
And I actually found being black and having talent actually opened doors for me.
I would say it's almost a reverse because of the amazing history of Black American music. I think you see a musician, or even sometimes, this is probably reverse racism, but sometimes I remember being in a covers band and having an audience member who was black. I didn't know at the time what nationality they were, but he came up and he had an American accent and he said, can I do a song with you guys? And I automatically went, he's going to be good, which is, that's racism basically, but it's kind of the other way around. He got up, he was dreadful. But I would imagine in generally a non-racist environment that it would be almost an advantage, but you have to be able to back it up, which obviously you would.
I mean, if you've got the talent, it's opened doors for me.
Yeah.
But it was really a strange thing, and I also realized that for all my family and friends that are black that have never left the U.S., they have no idea what that feels like.
Compare it. Yeah.
They have no reference of that.
Yeah.
So I'm back in the country. We've got this 1 week engagement, and it was myself and an American keyboard player who also came from Holland with me, and we picked up a drummer and a guitarist. I later on found out that the guitarist, his name was Kevin Moore, who turns out to be Ked Mo, the blues. Yeah.
Oh, right. But he didn't go by.
Well, he wasn't that. He wasn't that.
Oh,
he was in his early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we're doing the first night of this show, and my eyes are really sensitive to cigarette smoke. So in the break, I walk out and I go for a walk around the neighborhood, and the next thing I know, there's a beam of light. Like I'm thinking UFO.
Yeah.
And then police cars roll up on me, like 3 cars, and you throw me against the car, gunpoint, the whole thing, asking me, "Where are you going?" And I said, listen, I'm playing in this club over here, And I showed them some ID. I had some Dutch ID, driver's license from there, and then they let me go. And that, once again, it's just like, this is why I don't live here.
And you think that was a skin color issue?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, but I'd never seen a police helicopter. We're talking 83.
Scary.
And I later on found out that the slang name for them is ghetto birds, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But that really blew my mind, because that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And to have left because of that previous episode, and then to come back and then encounter this again. It was really strange.
But you, I was speaking to you earlier today, and at one stage you were considering possibly going back to the US or to
I had
Germany.
considered.
You still would?
Well, it's a real mixed thing for me,
Yeah.
because I have a number of friends here in Australia that have gone there, and they've all had incredible success. Everything that took off for them, and
There's more opportunities because it's a bigger country and
And
more established
the other thing
industry.
too that makes a difference is there's an attitude there
Yeah.
that you never know where the next big thing is coming from.
Right.
So you will always get people interested to
Is
see.
that right? You
Yeah.
see that more than you would here.
Here.
Yeah.
I find it's one of my frustrations here.
Yeah,
It's quite close-minded and very cliquey.
yeah,
You know, whereas, you know, there, everybody, because you never know what the next big thing is.
yeah.
So there's an overall thing of, well, you know,
You could be it.
You could be it.
Yeah.
So let me at least give you a shot at it.
That's interesting.
And that's one of the main differences here. I mean, with the wealth of knowledge and experience that I have here, there's a number of times I've just offered, and, you know, I don't get the calls, or I get, you know, knockbacks, or I'll play on people's recordings, and then when it comes time to do the tour, I don't get the call.
Do you think that's partly because people assume you're too busy or too expensive or too...
I don't know what it is. I mean, and I'm talking about in the early days of being here. You know,
Right.
and one of the you know, and because I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I would let anything like that crush me. And I remember there was a keyboard player that I played with in the early days of being here in Australia, and he died, tragically died. And there was a benefit concert held for him. And I'm there in the audience with David Jacobson. And he's looking at me and goes,
Why aren't you?
you play with all these people, how come you're not up there?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't really know. I don't get what it is.
Yeah.
And
Maybe it is a clickiness. You think that's a symptom of that?
well, he kind of said, you know, maybe that's it. You don't do the whole hang and you know,
Yeah,
the alcohol and
Yeah,
whatever.
look, I feel that kind of thing sometimes too, and sometimes, it is. It is the hang.
yeah, and it's not my scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be learning how to do something.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know? But the moment he said that, it was like, well, yeah, okay. And from then on, it was cool.
yeah.
So it's never really bothered me. And you know, I left at the age of 21, 2020, going on 21. You know, one-way ticket to Germany. you know,
Yeah.
so I've never had a fear of anything because I look at life that tomorrow's not promised. So everything that happens today, this might be the last. I mean, if this is my last moment,
You'd
look
be
at what I'm
happy with
doing,
that.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I literally live by that. So
Yeah, that's great. Great attitude.
when I perform, I'm actually giving, my attitude is whoever is there, it's one person, I'm performing for you. So that whenever you speak of me, it will be like, wow, that guy was fantastic.
Yeah.
And so that's how I go about it. I've some of the strangest ones have been,
Yeah, tell me about a strange one.
wow.
It's probably a lot to choose from. I mean, sometimes don't you find, I know I do, it's not about how many people are in the audience, how big or grand the venue is. Those things can make it a nice experience, but often it is a combination of the way you feel the sound, the reaction you're getting, a vibe. It's kind of things that are hard to measure.
No, because for me, I'm performing.
Yeah,
So whoever is there, it's my thing to engage them.
yeah,
What has impacted upon it not being a great gig is usually something like a sound guy, a sound person, who's like
almost
killing
number
it,
one.
killing
Really.
it, where
Killing it in a negative way.
in a negative way that
absolutely.
that people are just can't stand the sound.
Yeah, and you can't control it from where you are always.
One of my signatures is that I play wireless.
Yeah.
And I know sound.
Yes.
So I go up there and I tell them, it's like, hey, do this, blah, 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 blah.
Excellent.
And when I get that pushback,
Yeah.
I just go and do it
Do it
myself.
yourself.
And then
I wish I had that
and-
skill.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
do it myself, and then I dare them to touch it.
Yeah.
I mean, I use that, because
Why not?
you're impacting upon, something that I do.
Absolutely.
And your ego, I got no room for that.
Yeah.
I had an incident once at the basement. I won't mention the engineer's name, but the bass was so loud. The whole thing was so loud in the room, and it was because they were trying to make a mix for their recording.
Ah, yes.
And there's no need to have everything in the PA so that you can have this mix.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing my instrument louder in the audience than I am on stage. And I said to him, a couple of times, hey, turn it down. Can you turn it down? And he wouldn't. So I walked over while playing.
The wireless as well. That's
and
a
I
great
just
thing.
pulled the fader down.
Yeah.
And in the break, he came into the band room and just said, hey, And I was like, man, you better get out of my face.
Yeah.
You know, you've impacted upon my performance.
Yeah.
So just get out of my face, or you know, I'm gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
And I'm not that kind of person.
I didn't
but
think you
when
were.
it comes to that,
Yeah.
I don't play.
The way that I guess you've had experiences feeling racism, which is something beyond your control, and it's something, you know, you are a certain race and that's what you are. It's being a female in the music industry, probably in any industry, we often get a similar response. And I've got to say, I have a lot of sound engineer friends, and they're great people and great engineers, and they're respectful, but there are some.
Oh.
And, you know, we'd all deal with a lot of different sound engineers. It's not as if we can take one around with us, or that we're only working in one venue. So there's a lot of sound engineers, and it's probably not the majority at all, but there are times that, you know, I definitely get the reaction, well, what would you know?
Well,
You know,
yeah, of
you're
course.
female and you're a singer. Like,
Yeah.
you've got double things against you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hear you, but the fact that you can go out there, not impact the actual performance because you're still playing,
Yeah.
and then physically go and change things, I love.
Because this is what I do, and
Yeah.
you're part of that. And if you don't get it, you know, if you don't understand that your job is to just enhance,
Yeah,
you know, then you're not doing your job.
yeah, absolutely. Do you ever do that job by itself? Are you ever a sound engineer in
Yeah,
your
I've
life?
done that as well.
Yeah, right.
I do that as well.
And why do you think that we have that problem with other sound engineers all the time? From being in that point of view, is it much harder than we think?
I find that the biggest problem is their ego,
Right.
and it's that I have this power,
Yes, it's
and
all at
I'm
my
making a
fingertips.
mix. And you know, my other real pet hate are lighting people.
Right.
You know, even on a concert scale, you know,
Yeah.
the number of times that you go to a concert and there are members in darkness on stage,
Yeah.
and the audience is doing that.
Oh, yeah. Smoke machines. Don't get me started on smoke machines.
I almost had to hurt somebody over
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I've desired to hurt somebody over that.
Yeah.
Don't have the capability.
Yeah, no, I just unplugged it.
Yeah.
And then I dared
Yeah.
them to plug it back in.
I know, I knew enough. I have a very good female friend singer who did that once, and it's just, that's one of the great victory moments for
Yeah, I
me.
said to you, this is affecting my throat.
Oh my goodness.
If I can't deliver because of you, then you're impacting upon my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are judging you a certain way,
Of
and they're
course.
judging you on those moments. I've gone out on stage and coughed because the smoke just, and at the time that I kind of went, do you take in a breath and sing? The smoke machine goes in my face.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, those people are so important to us, aren't they? And when you get great ones, and there are plenty of great ones, it's
Well, it's a lack of education.
Yeah.
Is what it is, you know. And it's one of the things that is an observation of Australia being so small that the industry was on the same level as everywhere else, but
Yeah.
there weren't as many skilled people. So
Yeah.
people kind of fell into roles
Right.
because they needed somebody.
Yeah.
And some of them would take that and then upskill themselves and
Right.
become better at it. But
Yeah.
some of them just, it was their ego.
Yeah.
I am this, and I'm sitting on, you know, so who are you to tell me I'm the sound person or I'm the lighting person, you know. So,
Yeah, interesting. I have heard that before from people who've worked a lot overseas, that it's more of an Australian problem than it can be in other places. But you've worked with an amazing array of legendary artists. And I mean, there's a massive list, but the two that stuck out for me, I guess, were Santana and the Supremes, as kind of very different ends of musical styles. But what experiences can you tell me about working with people like that?
the Supremes, I just gone to Germany, you know, after that thing that happened in the US.
Yeah.
And I bought a one-way ticket and I went into a music store and left my, played a bit and left my number. And I caught up with the drummer from my mother's band. And he was in a band and they said, we're looking for a bass player. So I came in and worked with them for a bit. And it was really going well. And then I get this call saying, hi, we're looking for a bass player to do a European tour with the Supremes.
Oh my
Your number
gosh,
was
that's a
listed.
call?
Yeah, and it was from that music store that I left my number.
Right.
And I said to the guys in the band, I said, listen, I've got to take this one. And
They could understand.
they understood, you know.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is that they decided to not have a bass player. So they continued and they called themselves trio. So it was a drummer, a guitarist, and a singer.
Wow.
And they were kind of new wave punk, German band, and they called themselves Trio. And they went on to have quite a lot of success. And one of their songs is called I Don't Love You, You Don't Love Me.
Yeah.
Which is the theme that, remember the ad for the rice crackers, Sakata? Sakata.
Oh, yeah.
Doo, doo, doo. That's them.
That's no way.
So that was that path. So I then ended up doing this tour with the Supremes, and one of the most outstanding moments when the tour finished, we were in Munich, and I'm in the lobby with Mary Wilson, Jeff Bridges, the actor,
Yeah.
and a few of us.
What was he doing there?
He happened to be there for some film he was working on.
Right.
And we got to talking about a bunch of things, and I started asking Mary, what was that like, being part of Motown? And she was talking about the Motown tours and the bus. And then she went on to talk about the first time that the Motown Revue went to Europe,
Yeah.
and to England, and that feeling of being treated like royalty.
Yes.
And then she said we came back, and we're back on the bus, and we're driving through towns in the South, and there's bodies hanging.
Oh my goodness.
And that was one of the most outstanding, things of that tour. I mean, for me, it was an incredible dream to be playing.
Of course.
Yeah.
But it is those moments, isn't it, when you actually get to speak to someone and ask
Yeah.
something important. It's so special.
It was really something, to have that. And, I've had my own similar experience, but not to the point, that I'm driving into, little backwater towns and there's literally people hanging.
Oh my goodness.
And I've got stories of, my family, my father's side of the family in the South and all that going back. But that was an incredible thing. The Santana thing was here in Australia.
Oh, right.
And it was, I was touring with Kevin Burrish, and we actually opened for Santana.
Oh, fantastic.
But the thing that was most amazing is his lead singer was Buddy Miles,
Right.
who was the drummer from Band of Gypsies, the Hendrix thing.
Gosh, was that like a full circle moment for
And
you?
that for me, I was more
interested in
him.
Yeah.
And we ended up hanging out. We really, after the show, we hung out all night, and I got to ask him all these stories, about Hendrix and his experiences. And the funny thing is, just prior to doing Santana, I was asked to be in the band Wawani,
Right.
and it hadn't launched yet. So I was actually the bass player in Wawani.
Were you?
And we were rehearsing all the songs. We were getting ready to start the tour and the launch of it. And the launch was going to be on a Friday,
Yeah.
and the Santana tour was on a Saturday, and my birthday was on the Monday. So this was in June. And that Friday noon, I get a phone call. Craig Calhoun, this is immigration, Australian immigration. You have 24 hours to leave this country. And I said, so now I put in an application, to as a resident here.
Yeah.
Did you not get it? He said, well, we have no record of it. And he said, I'll call you back. So he rang like an hour later. He said, we found the application, and you have two choices. He said, because you did submit it months ago and we've only just found it, we can let you stay here while we process it, or you can leave the country and apply from outside. He said, we look at it more favorably if you apply outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is your choice. And I said, that's still 24 hours to leave the country. I didn't say that I had these shows coming, because that Friday night was the Wawani debut, and the Saturday was Santana. And I said, listen, my birthday's on Monday. Can I stay until Monday? And he said, sure.
Oh, that's nice.
So I opted to go back and apply. So I rang Wawani's management and told them, and they said, listen, we'd rather you not play, because if immigration comes and shuts it down. And I had been giving lessons to Paul Gray's brother.
Right.
And so he stepped in.
Right.
And then that became his path. He was the bass player for Wawani.
Yeah.
But Santana, I wasn't going to back out of that.
Of course
So
not.
it's like, So I did that show and ended up hanging out with Buddy. And And on Monday, we were on the same flight back to the U.S.
So, okay, you've been working with a lot of different bands. How did you get to the point where you were doing your own solo original project?
So this is another interesting thing about being here in Australia. Prior to coming here, I've always had original bands.
Yeah.
I mean, I write a lot of music.
How much? I mean, we in a year. I mean, I know every year's different,
I've
but
got about 12 terabyte of original material.
it's fantastic.
You know, and it's not just funk. I do ambient. I do all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't read or write notation because I'm dyslexic,
Really?
and so my eyes don't scan.
Right.
You know, and I couldn't understand why. You know, the number of times that I've tried, you know, taking lessons, it just didn't work.
You
for
didn't
me.
know as a kid. You
I
only
didn't
found
know.
out
I only
later.
found out when my son was being diagnosed. I was there when they were doing the tests, and I was scoring the same as him. And that's when I discovered that explains why.
Wow.
You know, so it's always been a thing that I hear it and I can just make it. You know, so
Who needs to read when you got that
well, a lot of the music I make, if I want to play it again, I have to learn it
Okay.
because it
You
just
can't write it
it
in.
just comes out.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I'm about to. I've actually got finished the submission for tomorrow to do a TED talk because I have what I call like the fourth dimension of sound of music,
Right.
and it came from when that thing in San Francisco happened with the band and we had to leave. I'm driving back to Southern California and I'm in the desert and this song comes into my head. I hear music all the time.
Yeah.
Comes into my head and I hear lyrics and everything. And I didn't have any means of recording it.
Right.
So I pulled over and I just wrote out the lyrics and I just kept it going in my head until I got home. So then about 5 hours later, I get home and I pick up the guitar and I go up and down the fretboard. It's like I can't find the first note. I go to the piano, go to the bass, and I'm playing every note and it's like, how come this is not sounding? So fast forward a couple years later, I'm in Europe now, and I'm doing a recording session in Holland, and they had hired the first Yamaha DX7 synthesizer to ever come into the country. So this is like new technology. And when the session finished, I offered to take it back to the higher place because it was near where I lived, and they didn't have to go until the next day, which meant I got to play with it that
Oh,
night.
yes.
So I'm going through the presets and I press the sound and play a bit and press the next sound. And I get to patch number 21 or something like that, and I hit the sound and it was the sound of my song.
Sound that you'd imagined in your...
Well, it was what I heard.
Right.
And it was from that moment that I realized that there's another dimension to music.
Yeah.
It's the sonic dimension.
Yes.
So the reason that I couldn't realize this by finding notes on, traditional instruments is the song was made up of a sound. And I was actually able to make that song come to life.
Because of that synthesizer.
Because it was a sound.
But I mean, you found
Yeah.
you used and ended up
So
using that.
here I am hearing a sound of something that I didn't even know existed yet. Which is what I later on realized that's what Hendrix did with guitar. We talk. There's nobody that touches what he did
Yeah.
because he not only played guitar, but he played sound.
Yeah.
And
Really
so
interesting.
that's what I want this talk to be about.
Yeah.
What dimension, and I also think that being dyslexic and not being able to read and write music hasn't stopped me from creating music.
Almost an advantage in your case.
In a funny way, it is, and I find that one of the things that I've been working on is a curriculum based on how to get more people engaged in music.
Yeah.
Because many of us, a number of people that say, oh, I want to play guitar, and I tried it, but I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
It's because they're not getting anything that gives them something that makes them want to go on. And I think that when you look at music, traditional music, it's melody, it's harmony, and it's rhythm. Well, I think it needs to be turned around. I think it needs to be rhythm first. Because before we could write and read, we communicated through rhythm. Number of tribes that play drums and
Absolutely. It was a messaging.
there you go.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you flip it around where you base it on rhythm first, then you can apply all the other things. And so I've been thinking about this because the submission is due. And even last night I realized that one of the examples that I give is I'll take the bass and I'll tap out a rhythmic thing, and then I'll apply any notes to it.
Right.
And you will still move to it
Yeah.
because it's the rhythm that you
rhythm.
connect. And when you look at notation, they're just notes. If there's no rhythm, that tells you where they go.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that it should be based around
It
rhythm.
does. Yeah. So how would that change the way somebody learns guitar, for example?
Well, I have a technique that I show them.
Okay.
What I do is I tune the guitar to an open chord, and I demonstrate what I call sonic colors,
Yeah.
painting with sonic colors. Because if that guitar's tuned to an open chord, I don't even have to put my fingers anywhere,
Yeah.
and I'm making something that sounds pleasing. So I then demonstrate how to play different colors by the rhythm and
Yeah.
which strings.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Because the strings are colors, there's 6 of them.
Yeah.
So I demonstrate that, and by emphasizing rhythm, I show them how easy it is. And then they can put one finger anywhere and it still sounds good.
Yeah. We're back in Sydney, and one of the bands that you're well known for here is the Brothers of Oz. Just in case somebody hasn't seen you or heard you, tell us about it. But also, I'm interested in the way that you actually run the band.
Okay. Prior to being here, as I said, I've always had original bands. And it was difficult to kind of make that happen here
Yeah.
back then because, there were so many gigs and tours. Well, a lot of us toured. So it was difficult to get the musicians of the caliber that I'm used to playing with because they were always so busy. But I didn't want to stop playing.
Yeah.
So I decided to have a band that was focused around myself and whoever I chose to play with that were available.
So not a set lineup necessarily.
Not a set lineup.
Yeah.
And, using covers
Yeah.
because we all know them.
Yeah.
So there's no rehearsals, there's no set list. You
No
just
set
get to
list.
be a musician.
Yeah.
And so that way it stays fresh for me. Because if you're playing the same songs the same way,
Yeah.
it's kind of boring. So it allows everyone to come and just be as expressive as they want to be. And because it's music, the way I look at it is, I'm one of the audience. I'm on stage with you, but I'm one of the audience. So I give you free reign to entertain all of us.
Yeah.
There's no restrictions. It's like, go for it. Be
Yeah.
as big as you want to be because I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So if we're all doing it, then we're creating something and we're creating a moment in time that, is unique.
So you'd be on stage and you'd be calling songs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I've interviewed some of the guys and they talk about, because sometimes I'll just start the song and
You won't even tell them what song it is?
no. And they'll look at each other.
Do you think it's this? Could be this?
Yeah, and they do that. And I had a residency at the basement for like 4 years, every second week, alternating with.
Which is testament to how good this band was, because that was our premier live
That was
venue
it.
when it was
Mm.
around. Yeah.
And I would always use the Herbie Hancock instrumental Chameleon as an opening because it gave the sound person a chance to hear everybody and it allowed us all to hear one another.
Yeah.
I recorded so many of those shows. I would have maybe in excess of 150 versions of it, and the longest one is like 23 minutes long.
Yeah.
And different tempos, different grooves, different whatever, because it's music and we're all playing and we're creating, so it has to be organic.
Yeah.
And that's how it works now. And I'm one of these guys that I want to experience whatever it is you have to offer, you know. So I'd meet, like one of the drummers that played with me the longest was a kid named Jared Neal, and I did a wedding, and the bride's mother came up to me at the end of the night. She says, "Oh, my next door neighbor's son plays drums and he sounds pretty good, you know, can I give him your number?" And sure enough, he contacted me and he came by and he could really play.
Yeah.
I said, "Listen, I'm doing the Manly Festival, you know, next week.
Manly Jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to play?" And, you know, I'm one for throwing people in the deep end.
Yeah.
Because that really tells if you, and he played with me for like 7 years. He's been in Nashville after that.
How fantastic.
Other players would meet me and say, "Oh, listen, man, I love your band. You know, if ever you need a keyboard player, whatever." Nick Primgati
Yeah.
is one of them who approached me like that. And I gave him a call one day. He told me to do the gig, and then Nick played with me for years. So it's based on, I give you a shot,
Yeah.
and it's up to you to sink or swim.
Yeah.
You know. So to date, there's been over 100 musicians that have played in the Brothers. It's been going for 27 years.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And people come and they go, and you know, like Mark Williams was with me for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, and Rex Go has been in and out over the years,
Yeah.
and Eric, and so it's actually, you know, who's it? Peter Northcote said, "Man, this is a legacy."
Absolutely. It's got to be one of the longest running bands in Sydney, I'm sure. Yeah.
So I've been thinking of doing a Brothers of Boss reunion, like over 2
Yes.
nights, because I
To
know,
fit everybody in, you'd have to do
well,
a
that,
few
and
nights.
also because I, being the consistent one, I know which combinations of musicians for certain songs.
Oh, so it could really be
Yeah.
a mega band happening.
A really incredible.
That'd
you
be
know,
a great event. Yeah, wow.
But yeah, so that's the premise of the band, even to this day.
Yeah. Love it. All right, with your original recordings, where would you like to see all of that head? What plans have you got?
Well, I'm about to release a lot of things.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, that meeting with you, you know, you really inspired me a lot, because
Thank you.
as long as I've known you, that's one thing that you've done incredibly well was your brand. You know, and I realize I am a brand, but the way you market your brand is what, you know, I just take my hat off to you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I take inspiration from you. So now we're in this point where content is
He's
really
king. Yes.
And, you know, I saw a BBC documentary in 1999 that was talking about the future, and that was one of the lines. They said, "Content will be king," and I didn't quite understand it
Yeah,
then.
no, back then.
But when I was young, we had a fire when I was about 7, and our house burnt down.
Wow.
Everything, we lost everything. So I've always been one to kind of keep things, you know, and then with the amount of things that have happened in my life, you know, the stories and things, and I tell people stories, and sometimes I just think, "Oh, that's."
That happened to me.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And, you know, and people kept saying, "Man, you should really write."
I'm thinking the same thing talking to you now.
And I thought, yeah, but I don't write. You know, and then I had,
Ghostwriter.
I had somebody. I was telling this story to her, and she said, "You know, I'll give you a hand." And so that kind of propelled me. And then I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, well, my career is sound and vision. And I've got all this stuff. Why don't I do it as a multimedia? And
It's
so,
kind of a shame just to have it in written word, isn't it?
there you go. It's not as well served, and because
Yeah.
I've been a stickler for keeping recordings
Yes.
and photographs and interviews. I mean, I got a lot of stuff. I've even got cassettes that I've been carrying with me since I left the U.S.
Yeah.
in 1980. You know, of things that I've recorded. So that's what I've been embarking on. So I've been digitizing them and cleaning them up, and even all the shows at the basement. I planned this one stage. I was looking at building a website where was this tree with all the different gigs and the different lineups, and you know the number of people that have come to the shows over the years. They could say, "Oh, I remember this gig, and it was on that date." And here's a recording. You can download it. You know, so
Huge job, but fantastic.
huge job, but
Yeah.
you know. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that's something that I'd like to, find a grant for.
Yeah.
Philanthropist that believes in enough for me to engage a lot of ex-TAFE students, because I taught at TAFE for like 12 years part-time,
Right, what are you teaching now?
teaching sound,
Right.
and a number of those students have gone on to do incredible things, work on and win awards for films that they've mixed, and so here's a way for me to bring work to those people, in this industry that, sadly there's not enough work,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of skilled people out there.
Yeah.
So I just keep building it and building it and building. And my attitude is, let me build something that if I were in a position to invest, I would see that straight away and say, that's a no-brainer. And so one of the things that I've been also looking at is an investment portfolio. So I do all these different things that have potential earnings,
Yeah.
and I'll just present it as a portfolio, so
Yeah.
you can pick and choose which ones I want a piece of that or a piece of
Yeah.
this. But education, I'm really passionate about, because
Yeah.
every time that somebody passed on a nugget to me, I got so much out of it. And I have no idea how much longer I'm here. So
Yeah.
can you just pass it on?
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Truth will show when you stand so close, eye to eye.
Stay well, everybody, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
And I'll be watching you.